The ship's about to sail.
All right, let's do it. Dan, welcome to the Healing Beyond Recovery podcast. This is truly an honor to have you on the show. And I can honestly say, without you, I don't know if I would be here today doing the work I'm doing. You were a very instrumental human being within my own transformation and healing journey. And I really thank you. I really thank you. I know I've said this to you off air, but I'm saying it to you during this conversation. Thank you for being there for me when I didn't know where to go and where to turn. And I know it's from your strength and what you've had to overcome that you can be this light for others. So this conversation today is really about sharing all the beautiful things that you encompass as a living being that have helped me transform, and hopefully that message trickles in the ear of the listeners. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
All right, Michael, I think that is super humbling, and it's a two-way street because it takes a quality seed and a really good farmer to make a great harvest, right? Mm. Right, so if I was the farmer in this case in germinating your seed, the quality of the seed was there. Mm. Does that make sense?
For sure. And I can say beyond the question of a doubt, the suffering was there to help me germinate that too. And yeah.
Well, that's a hard shell around the seed,
For sure.
You gotta
yes,
come on,
and that's
break
what,
it out.
Absolutely. And that's what I needed to break that. And honestly, when I first started learning from you and seeing how you were healing, I was tremendously humbled. I didn't have a cancer diagnosis like you did, but we had my, multiple chemical sensitivity, irritable bowel disease. And yet here you were, eating a raw ketogenic, busting out this pork chop with me, just beautifully, humbly eating it with me. And I asked you, how do you do this, Dan? And you said you move beyond the suffering. And I remember you sharing that with me, and that was like, oh my freaking God, like in that moment, you were just like this radiating light and being for me that was doing this deep work, including eating raw meat. So it's amazing, man. So thank you for being the farmer and helping me crack my seed.
Great. And thank you for blossoming.
Yeah. And last conversation.
Now you're providing shade and fruit and flowers for everybody. So thank you for hanging in there. The germination phase is like the caterpillar going to the butterfly, that little transitional phase that could last a decade for some people, right? Mm. And that's the challenge is it's not about, I'm going to get to the butterfly. It's about how do you navigate that process of transition. We call it transformation. Mm.
Yeah. And let's jump right in and get to that. And before we share the ins and outs of how we do that, why don't you share with the listeners a little bit about your own personal journey and how you got to where you are today, supporting others as a holistic natural health and healing educator and consultant and life mentor. But what's your story?
In a nutshell, right? In a nutshell
version.
Yeah. So let me summarize it so people will take something home. Let me give them the nugget that summarizes it, right? So health is the foundation to life. It's plain and simple to understand that from the materialistic plane, where if a family's having a child come through, their only concern is that child healthy? Just tell me that child's healthy, has all its fingers, toes, everything's working, right? That's what they're concerned, because that's the foundation to our human experience. Mm. And then what we've missed in the process of domestication, the process of modernization, is that love is actually the purpose for living. And it's not that we go get love. The purpose for love that I'm referring to is that you have to learn to become love instead of the need to be loved. Mm. Radically different. Mm. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's not helpful to receive love that's being given to us, right? But we want to be that. Boom. We want to just radiate it out. So that's my process. is how do I become more loving today than I was yesterday? How do I become healthier and wealthier today, more healthier and wealthier today than I was yesterday? And then how do I help people do that? It's not that it's a concept, but it's an easy thing. So my story came as following the American script. I came into being the engineer, and coming out of college, of course, that's part of the script. Get a good education, get a steady job. Now go find a wife, acquire a wife, start settling down. And in fact, at 25, I'm more concerned about retirement plans than living.
Oh, wait, hold on. Did you just say retirement plans? I was 24 years old with a $400,000 whole life policy insurance because I was afraid of ending up like my parents with no retirement.
Yeah.
So that just like whacked me between the eyes.
Oh, good.
I get it.
Yeah. And so every day at 25, I'm looking at my so-called 401ks and I'm obsessed with it, and I'm like, this is kind of weird. And then you get the wife, and then you get the house, and then you stop following. And now it's just waiting for retirement in some ways. And along the way is how much can I consume of this material plane and prove that I'm show that I'm successful. In a nutshell, I was following the script that happiness is outside of myself and the people, places, and things of the world. That's the script that I was taught, right? My happiness is outside of myself. And so I had to get the awakening that my job, my career choice was not in alignment with me, and I was suffering in that regards. I was not content. I was not happy. I was not engaged with my work. And 8 hours a day, I was suffering, watching the clock, couldn't drink enough caffeine to numb me out because I really didn't care to drink a lot of caffeine. I'm nervous anyway, so I don't need that, right? And then it took me, I didn't have a self-esteem or a self-confidence to leave on my own proactive accord. And I was just sort of like, I'll tough it out. It'll get better. I'll get a bonus. I'll get a raise. I'll get a promotion doing that, right? Suffering. It wasn't coming because I wasn't engaged in the work. And then I was becoming disgruntled or discouraged and then disgruntled. And then it led to the body systems probably not aligning with that. And at 28 and a half, almost 29, 6 months after I got married, I was walking into Dr. Lawrence Cloud's office, and he was basically there to say, I was there to see what is my prognosis, what's my diagnosis, why am I so sick?
Were you sick at the time?
Yeah, I was experiencing what they call B symptoms of cancer. And the story goes a lot more details on how that came to be, but essentially the B symptoms was really rigors and uncontrollable shivers every night where you sweat it out, and then you'd get cold, and then you'd get hot and you get cold. And that went on for several days. The temperature was going up continuously. Never experienced it in my life. So here I was going in there, and Dr. Lawrence Cloud, we stood up, we shook hands, met eye to eye, and he had a question. I call it a powerful question. That was, Dan, how did such a young man such as yourself get into the business of cancer? And the reason why it was a powerful question is because it went right through the ego and super ego defense mechanism, hit me right where the true self, as someone might call it. And the reason why I say it hit the true self is because I took that question seriously and I asked the question inward. I said, Dan, how did you get into this? What was it that you were doing that you got here? And in that Socrates moment, that, I was shown, no shit, no wonder why I'm here or potentially here, right? Never mind. But in a nutshell, in reflecting and processing, I was living an ignorant and arrogant life. This body and mind and soul is life. And I was totally ignorant and arrogant of that, taking it fully for granted. And then that means I was totally lost connection to my true sense, my authentic self, and my integrity and honesty. Like, it showed me how I lied and manipulated the world to get what I wanted, because getting what you want in the world is where my happiness is. I had to admit this. Forget about it with women when I was the player. That was the goal, was to have sex and manipulate for that. Even if I was charming in it, I was using charm as a manipulative tool, or humor, or generosity, or kindness. Those can all be used as manipulative tools. Now, did I do that all the time? No. So I was shown all that. And of course, then, using alcohol and drugs to manage my anxieties, to manage my low self-esteem, to manage my self-confidence, to make me feel puffed up, Popeye had spinach, I had alcohol. That got me in my muscle, So I think we've sort of went down a similar path in that regards, that was the way I was managing my lost connection to this authentic self. And I had no mentor. I had nobody that I grew up with that was going to give me that particular mentorship, guidance. In fact, when I got cancer, I didn't even tell my mom. I told my mother-in-law first, because I know my mom in the past would have said, would you do, stupid? Or something. She would have blamed me for it, like, in some ways, like, it wasn't the caring experience that I really needed as a wounded child or something. So anyway, to make light of it, that's the story in a nutshell. I went through cancer treatment to buy me the time to formulate a real honest answer to that question. Dan, how did you get into the business of cancer? I took it as though in that moment, that was my life syllabus in some way. But I fell back into the cocky ego, the super ego, and I thought, I'll just go through it. I'll tough it out, take another check in the corner from hockey, whatever. And the humbling part was every time I went through a protocol of chemo, which could last 8 months, 10 months, 6 months, the cancer would go away into remission and then come back. So it would go away and I'd feel cocky, come out of it and start to celebrate prematurely. And then it would come back, and that's humble pie. Oh shit, I didn't really answer the question. I'm not living the question. Maybe I have some ideas, but I'm not living the question. I'm not embodying the answer to that question.
Did that always haunt you? Like the moment the doctor said how you got into the business of cancer, and that just cut through the ego and the super ego, did that truth always resonate with you, even though you were still doing the cancer therapies and, yes, remission would happen, but then again, it would come back? Because this hits me too with, following Western medicine for my irritable bowel. I got on all these drugs. Oh yeah. Just keep pumping me with drugs. I'll keep chasing the ladies.
Yeah.
I'll keep chasing.
Yeah.
So yeah. And
it's the same thing.
Yeah. So it was kind of always in the backdrop, just like that truth.
It was a seed. It was a seed that was sort of waiting to be in the right fertile environment to really open. Does that make sense? So the seed was planted, but I had to fertilize. I had to become the farmer of that seed to fertilize it.
It makes perfect sense. And for the listeners too, this may be your moments with, addiction or whatever it may be, that the truth, right? My mentor would say it's the truth that liberates, not your effort to be free. So what was the catalyst to really just kind of, I don't know, pigeonhole you into just nothing but living that question?
So
it's like
it
stop
came
bypassing.
after, yeah, I think it started, the real first moment that I recognized it. Well, first of all, even in the first diagnosis, I said, I got to start living my life more true to myself. So I went and I wanted to give back, because I wasn't mad at the medical model, because they weren't there to cure me or solve the question. They couldn't answer the question. I wasn't deficient in chemo, radiation, or surgeries.
Yeah, right.
How did you get into the business of cancer? Well, I didn't get the childhood chemotherapy and they didn't cut my lymph nodes out.
Yeah.
Or, that doesn't answer the question. So it doesn't solve the mystery to why cancer came into my life for me to experience. So that was the first wake-up call, was start living my life. And I started coaching ice hockey as a means to give back to society, to say, I'm grateful, as a means of an action. Why am I grateful for life? I'm going to help people. even though I was not feeling that great. So I started coaching hockey. I loved the ice hockey, had some friends from playing high school hockey, playing some hockey with some high school friends and stuff. So they were coaching with me. We had a blast. And it was a good outlet to remind me that I want to be here and participate in life. But then when I relapsed for the first time and I had to go through a bone marrow transplant, that process was really trying and really hard on the system, on my psyche and physical body. And in the fall, I had a 6-week, 7-week, 8-week relapse. That was a period of remission. And then I relapsed in 8 weeks. That's when I was really spiritually flat. And I went to my wife at the time and I said, you know what? I just want to ride this out and see where it goes. I don't want to do anything else. Because they're talking about more chemo. And my wife at the time really had some vitality behind her reasoning was, you got to do it. You got to do it. And at that point I said, all right, this is where the seed started to fertilize. I got to be serious about changing my diet and exercise. That was a switch. It was her fear in the form of what I might call love, like her fear of me dying in some regards and her fear of loss. The way she presented it, I felt it as like she just gave me everything she got. And in that, she suffered in some ways on that part, right? She gave me everything she got. It was like the soul paddles to revibrate, like get going. And I use this analogy. It was like Rocky, when Rocky had his eye all beat up, he's in the hospital and Adrian comes down and she's in the hospital and she goes, hey, she whispers, hey, Rocky, when? I don't know if you remember that scene, but that was what it felt like. She was scared for him. He's beat up, and she's like, just when? And so something arises from that feminine energy, that female prowess, whatever that grace is. I took it on. So, so that was it. And now for your listening audience, diet and exercise doesn't mean crap, because everyone's on a diet, but it doesn't mean it's nourishing. Let it go. That's why diets don't work. The term doesn't work. It's way outdated. We need an updated version. I brought it around and I said, we need to learn how to nourish ourselves, and men have a hard time because nourishment is a feminine energy.
All right, beautiful. Before we go into diet though, let's go to where the bone marrow transplant happened. The relapse is coming. And then all of a sudden you come to the realization you have to change your lifestyle a bit. So we don't leave the listeners completely hanging. What happened after that as a result to treating the cancer?
So that at that point, I was like, I have to start eating better. I have to start moving my body. So at that point, I got stronger to do more chemo. Like, what can I do as an adjunct to support my body as an integrative process with going through the chemo model? So I did the chemo, and then I started to be around more fitness. So in May, I said, I'm stopping this protocol short.
The chemo protocol?
Yeah, I stopped it. I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to train to ride in the Pan Mass Challenge, the 200-mile bike ride for the Jimmy Fund, a cancer thing. Another means for me to give back to society, saying, hey, I'm grateful. And to give me a target, give me something. So that summer in May, with their reluctance, I stopped all the treatment and I trained. I did the MS ride on Martha's Vineyard. I put about 1,800 miles on my bike. I did the 200-mile bike ride in August, which was a 1-year anniversary of the bone marrow transplant, me coming out of the bone marrow transplant, and just victory. I did it, no problem. And I was cancer-free, even though I stopped the protocol short, only to find out about 3 months, not 3 months, maybe about 2 months later, I had tumors in my spine. So that was another wake-up call, and you can imagine how hard my shell was if I needed tumors in my spine and the immense pain and suffering that brought on, and other ailments along the way. So that required radiation treatment. very aggressive, twice a day, 2 weeks, morning and afternoon or late afternoon. So it was, you wake up, you drive to Boston, get the treatment, drive home, rest. It was like an athlete, a chemotherapy patient or radiation patient athlete in high training. And so, you know, at that point I was starting a little bit more holistic stuff. So I understood that lavender oil could help me, my skin, continued with eating a diet that was based on the 40-30-30 principle. Barry Sears was the first sort of entry level into understanding of sugar's role and detriment, and showing me my addiction to sugar. I mean, if you want a powerful addiction, talk about sugar.
Oh yeah.
And wheat
intense.
And grains, super intense, and took me years to come on to get control of it. So story comes, I get rid of the tumors in the spine. Now I'm in remission, and it's spring of 1997, and I get the humble pie again. Tumors are raging back.
So the humble pie, right? For the listeners, like, the lessons keep repeating until learned. And it's like you keep getting the message, and yet, you know, your body keeps showing you that things need to change, right? For me, at the end, I couldn't breathe oxygen. I was in the woods because my amygdala was stuck on fight or flight. So that's where it took me. Now, a lot of people in recovery from addiction, you know, we've beat our heads on every signpost along the way, and it's challenging to learn that way. But here we are, you know, and it sounds like cancer is teaching you a few lessons at this time.
It's just getting me deeper and wider into answering that question.
Yeah.
It's just further inward research. You know, like I say in my podcast, Do the Cure, that the cure already exists. It's just that we have to do the research inward.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So remember how I said happiness is I've put happiness into the people, places, and things of this world to hide my unhappiness. So to switch that, joy is something intrinsic, and that's an inner expression of life. And the beauty of joy is that no one can take that away from you. You have it wherever you are. But certainly in this plane of living, somebody could sort of make you unhappy for a moment. They can influence you and impact you if you're not joyful in that moment. Joy is a force. It's a shield for the hero inside each person. So I had to learn, how do I cultivate this happiness within myself, or what I call joy? You know, and that came down a little bit further down the road, because in 1997, I quit the chemo protocol again to train for the Pan Mass Challenge for the second year. And at this point, I was pretty on target with studying personal training, National Strength and Conditioning Association. Then I signed up for the corrective holistic exercise kinesiology program with the Czech Institute. And I seemed to hit it, and the work with the nutrition started to maybe take a little bit of root, and I was getting better at it and cleaning up. The sugar was getting lesser and lesser. So I had like a vision, or I had a mission, or whatever it was. I was coaching hockey. I felt like I was recreating myself a little bit while I went through this. So I had a 2-year remission, the longest remission from anyone that had a post bone marrow transplant survival of 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So this was just a remarkable story for them, that they had no idea how I was doing this, right? And I was starting to get more holistic in my approach. At one point, I went to the Deepak Chopra Center in 1999 to get a 3-day Panchakarma detox, which that's interesting, because I went in there feeling like shit and I came out feeling worse. It's kind of like anybody that's in alcohol recovery or anything, they go get a detox. They go in feeling like, I feel like shit, my life's crumbling. And then they get out and they're like, my life's still crumbling. It's that feeling of, man, this is really hard to deal with. Like, how many punches can I take, Rocky? I'm Rocky right now. I'm in the ring. I'm going with the heavyweight. that ego and superego. And I was blessed because I was surrounding myself with more holistic people and mentors and stuff like that. So the community of support is very vital in this process, right?
Yeah, and it sounds like little by slow, you're continuing to live that question and aligning more with your true self. Now, we've had a couple conversations, obviously, before this, and you were talking to us or talking to me about your belief around addiction is the lack of connection with the truth. So, what do you mean when you say addiction is a loss of connection to the truth?
All right, let's reverse it for a second, then have a discussion on that. So, what if addiction, a part of addiction, is I'm addicted to lying? I'm addicted to lying to myself and others. I'm addicted to, many people have said that, alcoholics are compulsive liars. They get trapped in lies and then they deny them.
Yeah, lying just is par for the course when you're an addict.
Right. So now we're just using a substance like alcohol or drugs that are outside of us, and they're innate. They don't do anything. They have to get into you. So how do they get into you? It is something to feed the lie.
As though I need this to be okay. I need this. This is going to do something for me that I can't do for myself, or whatever it is.
Yeah. This is going to make me feel better. Right now, yes, but not tomorrow unless you do it again, because the lie keeps coming back until you keep that up. It's asking you, will I have the courage? Actually, will I use my courage that we all have? Will I use the courage I was God-given to face the truth and to live more truthfully in integrity and conquer those lies? All right. And that's the call. So if someone's waking up saying, all right, I admit I have a real big challenge with addiction in terms of the classic definition of it, right? Okay, great. That's the literal realm of thinking about it. But how do you feel about yourself that you're admitting that? What's the subjective inner dialogue that you have going on about that?
Yeah, I'm unworthy. I'm useless. I'm unlovable. I'm never going to make it. I'm fractured in some way.
Something wrong with me, and I'm ashamed of it.
Mm.
I'm ashamed. And so that's the shame that binds you in the book, right? Breaking the shame that binds you. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I forget the author, but that's an oldie but goodie.
Bradshaw.
Yeah.
John Bradshaw.
Right. So shame is at part of that root, and that keeps you in lost connection to your authentic self. I was proud of my cancer because I took ownership of it. I was part of the problem. I was the problem. I did things that consciously or unconsciously that definitely participated in creating the circumstances for me to have a major crisis.
Yes. Meaning, okay, beautiful. I love that. I believe that too, that I had a part to play in irritable bowel disease, multiple chemical sensitivity on a deep level, that my soul or spirit knew I needed this to wake up. And so I maybe called it in.
Yes.
Yeah. And some people, even I've been to a workshop where this particular leader said, if something happened to you, like, even, and I know this is tough for the listeners to hear, even myself, even if you've been, sexually abused, there's part of you that may have called that in. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, this lady's out of her mind. She's crazy. There's still part of me that struggles with that. And yet maybe, just maybe, there's some truth to that. I'm not saying that to say what happened to anyone, they deserved it, or that's what they, wanted. But we're just opening up this conversation to say, maybe what experiences happened to us, we call in to some degree. What would you say about that?
What if it's fertilizer for that seed?
Yeah.
As painful as it might be heard, maybe it's the fertilizer for that seed to really aliven something inside of us to grow into higher love. Remember, love is the purpose for living. And so maybe these traumatic events have blessings in disguise, or right, that we don't see them because the ego can't see what it's losing, right? I mean, it can only see what it's losing. It can never see what it's gains.
Yeah.
That's Kyle Cease's quote that I learned from. So I'm not going to take credit for that, but he, that's a powerful statement. The ego only can see what
that quote.
Yeah. The ego can only see what it's going to lose. It can never see what it's going to gain. That's the seed. We need to get to that true self that can see something beyond what the ego's trying to block from us.
Beautiful. That's a stopper right there. That's powerful.
It is. It's a beautiful quote. And that was Kyle Cease, Cease. At least I learned it from him. I don't know if that was an original quote from him, but it really doesn't matter. It came to me through him. And so this whole notion is the truth will set you free is so powerful. But here's the challenge that I needed real hard experiences for some reason, was a lot of my lies were so awesome that they became a truth. So how do you question the truth if it was built on a lie?
Yeah. How do you differentiate the truths from the false there?
I think it's the pain, number one, the pain into suffering. And number two, my vision for how I believe my God could say life could be lived. Like my vision or feeling that I could have the Garden of Eden, or I could live in the heaven on earth, or the realm of permanence. I had a better idea, and I shared it with my mom in the year 2000, which was, I didn't come to planet Earth to just survive. I've proven that I could do that for 35 years already. So I want to know what it means to thrive. My God, even in the beginning of cancer, I had a mantra. And I know some people, this will be hard for people because they'll think it's egoic or egotistic. So I said, I am the best. I deserve the best. Now, God, guide me to the best. I expect no less from my God.
Wow, that's beautiful.
We can say that now, but back then it was hard to keep saying it, to own it, to live it, right? Because that's what you're saying. People don't feel worthy. They feel ashamed. But I had to break that. I had to have something to break that. And I'm like, down with that, down with that. I am the best, right? I deserve the best, right? Now, God, guide me to the best. I expect no less from my God.
Yeah, beautiful. That's powerful. And, from my training with Dr. Paul Epstein, he talks about, illness as opportunity to awaken consciousness.
And I call that, to live a higher love.
Yeah. And even in addiction too. And we've spoken about this. So how can addiction and or illness be our greatest gift?
I think that's an individual journey. We can only come from our own experiences of the gift was, I learned that health is the foundation to life. Love is the purpose for living. That means for health, I have to stop being an arrogant prick. And for love, I have to lift my ignorance. I have to connect, keep deepening and widening my connection to something I still maybe don't have a great understanding. I'm sort of a spiritual adolescent, still riding on training wheels. And I still fall off the bike.
Ride on training wheels, you don't think
I still fall off,
I think there's a quality of remaining teachable when you're still on training wheels.
Well, I guess so. I hope everyone understands it's metaphoric, but
yes.
Anyway, that's the process for me. The gift was, wow, I know now that life for me is lifting. What's my arrogance? And that means integrity, right? I gotta keep practicing living in integrity.
So once again, coming back to living more aligned with the true self.
And questioning it along the way.
Yeah. And for me, illness was just a representation as well, and addiction of not following and listening to the self, listening to the higher self, right? And for me, I was locked in fear all the time. Fear kept me bound. And that experience I had with facing my illness through meditation and having a spiritual experience got me to shift my perception. So I know we talk about shifting perception a lot, and shifting perception is essential. And to, once again, that quote you just said a few minutes ago is, how can we see that this is a gift? How can we see that our pain is a gift?
Yeah. If you're stuck in the ego, it's hard to see what you can gain.
Yeah.
And so I say this, spirit, this I learned from Leonard Orr directly. So spirit through the body heals the mind. So if your mind is messed up, work through the temple. Be a carpenter, build up the temple.
All right. Beautiful. Let's go there for a moment, because watching you build your temple, was some shit when I was just popping my head out of my ass, and realizing that, oh my God, like I was waking up to the food industry. I was waking up to the media. I was waking up to all of these outlets.
Yeah, that could drive you into a Kundalini crisis.
It did. So let's first talk about awakening in that perspective of shifting your consciousness just around food and media and what we're absorbing, and then maybe getting into actual steps that we can begin to take that are more alignment with nature and health.
Yeah, so I think the concept comes back to changing diet to nourishment. And that's a learning curve, but let me share what diet is. So diet is everything you put into your eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, and on your skin.
Did you hear that, guys? Like, what you put on under your armpits for deodorant today matters. Are you putting,
it all
aluminum?
matters. All matters. And your eyes, putting sunglasses on, blocking out the beautiful photons from the sun. What about what you're looking at? What are you reading? What about your nose? What are you breathing? What are you smelling? See, I said, I want to know what the Garden of Eden is like. So I knew I need to put myself in beauty. Start looking at things at beauty, get some art, get some plants, do whatever. Make your environment beautiful, feng shui it, clean it. You don't have to work straight on make the temple awesome, which means your environment, the environment around you, the environment in you and on you. So, because everything is in the environment and the fields, right? So that's really going to determine what comes out of that seed. So if you put the seed if you put a beautiful seed in a toxic waste site,
it's not blooming.
It's going to be hard to freaking nourish that, unless you get a lot of prayerful people to sit on it like Mother Hen for 100 days, but what they're doing is trying to, essentially do an exorcism on the toxicity of that land so that the soil can be fertile for that seed. Mm-hmm. They're not really in control of the seed. God already controls the seed. So what's your environment like? You got to think about it. Diet is everything you put into your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and on your skin, because your skin consumes 60 to 80% of what you put on it. That's also your shower, your water that you're bathing in. There's many things that can go from there. The food you eat. What about your mouth? What you say becomes nourishment or malnourishment.
Oh, yeah.
See, you have to expand this holistic idea of what diet is, and what you're saying. If it's malnourishing, it's because of what you're thinking. And what you're thinking is because how you're feeling. And how you're feeling is what you embody. We got to change that all. Overwhelming? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, like you say, it's a process.
And that's it. And we are trained, and especially our culture in the United States is goal-oriented. Get the object of your desire. that was what I was trained in anyway, right? In my so-called upbringing education. So I had to shift, and I continue to struggle with goal-oriented to process-oriented. So, okay, great. Now I have to learn to continue to slow down and be in the process, be in the moment, be in the present moment. And so that is diet. And now we got to turn it around and just start doing things that you start with what you know you can do. Like, you can do it. I trust that every listener is the best expert of their own selves if they're given the safety to explore that. And then there's definitely one thing they know they can start to do that will nourish them.
Okay. So if I was to say, what is that one thing, are you going to send it back to me and say, well, that's for them to figure out? Or what is one thing that they can do to start that nourishing, healing process?
I think the concept is really important. Like the concept, I'm going to learn how to nourish myself. Right? And so then awareness applied is really what saves lives. So you have to be aware, and then you have to apply that awareness. What is one thing? I'm a big fan. If you don't get your main food reasonably correct, then you're at a very disadvantage, because food is so powerfully impactful, because it's the thing we do the most, and it's the thing we gain pleasure from the most.
Yeah.
So, you're going to do this 3, 4, 5 times a day. That's a lot of Zen mastery training. So I encourage them to, one, if they really struggle with that area of their life in terms of like food nutrition, food nourishment, then I would suggest they dive in on that. And the second thing, Mike, is absolutely a sleep cycle. Absolutely the most powerful thing they can start to think about is master your sleep.
Yeah, that's so powerful. In fact, that's something I'm working on right now myself. My fiance is cool with me getting the Aura ring for our wedding band. And when I said, hey, I'm going to get the Aura ring for my wedding band, she was like, oh, that's great. I was like, yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I thought she wanted me to get some.
They're pretty stylish.
Yeah, you got one.
They're pretty stylish.
Yeah.
It's got limitations, but it still helps to remind you that sleep's important. That's what you're paying for. The ring is a reminder, sleep is important to me. Right? So those combinations really hit it on two ends of the spectrum, where you got the food, which is the earth element, and the microbiome, very important with your diet, or your food intake is to support and feed the microbiome.
Okay. And you've always said it's an individualistic approach to what serves the person. For example, if you don't mind me sharing, you've eaten a raw ketogenic diet, supportive and healthy fats, which has been amazing. You turned me on to that when I first got sick. I was eating raw meat with you. I broke my juicer trying to juice coconuts because you told me the coconut cream was amazing. Right?
And it was the best food on the planet, the coconut cream.
Yeah. And just hats off to who's the owner there, Miller's Organic.
Miller's Organic Farm. Yeah, it's a private membership. Yeah. It's not open to the public. Yeah.
Yeah. And Dan told me about this is medicine. And I watched you eat medicine for your body. So how does the layperson where do they begin to start? How do they begin to listen to themselves to know what's medicine or what's poison for them?
Oh, it's so hard. I like to just say, I had the blessing to understand when I said diet and exercise, I had to shift. It instantly came to me that I have to learn to eat according to nature, how nature delivers it.
So like raw and just natural.
That was but back then in 1995, it was more the vegetables and the fruit, right? Because that was like pounded into us, right? It wasn't until 2000, after my fifth relapse, that I had to learn that, I'm sick again with my cancer, that I had to learn that I had a low-grade, unconscious microbial, phobia. And then I expanded and I'm like, wow, this whole country is germ phobic with all the shit on the store shelves to kill germs.
Oh yeah.
And all the processing and all this and all that. So I was like, that doesn't make any sense. How do I get in touch with the microbial world? I wouldn't let dogs really lick me, or I'd go in OCD and wash my hands. And that was born out of the bone marrow transplant, because I had a bone marrow transplant. So you're going to be immune compromised. Get the flu shot twice a year. I never did it. I didn't believe in it, because now I was saying, I'm going to follow nature's laws rather than man's laws. I'm going to learn what nature's laws are rather than man's laws. The more you follow man's laws, you transgress and separate from your true authentic self.
Yeah, in fact, this is one of the things you told me I never forgot. You said, hey, Mike, if you want to get sick, just follow the masses.
That's it. That you can't get any better results than what the masses are getting if you follow the masses. And this is the spiritual essence of a spiritual warrior, which is you got to go against the tide.
Oh,
and that's why that pushback is really painful. It's tribal disassociation in some way, and you have to stand alone for the most part. Yeah. Think of it like this. I had a beautiful vision of this at one point, like that feeling of feeling isolated in this experience. But I said, I'm a salmon swimming upstream to spawn a new life.
Oh, I love it.
That's me. Because I know if I struggle and struggle and struggle, guess what? I go into this oasis. There's no more struggle. And now I can create all kinds of life to carry on. What an absolute beautiful way to think of going against the masses.
Yeah.
Because I want to spawn a better life.
Yeah, beautiful. And that's, and once again, I think it ties into listening to the authentic self, because there's so much programming within us. It's, frankly, a lot of it is BS, what we're supposed to do. The White House, white picket fence, the lines in your green lawn, from fresh cut grass. And it's like, what do you really want to, you know what I mean? So it's like, what are you really here to do? So lo and behold, you got guys like Dan, guys like me getting drilled through illness and for me, addiction in a huge way, and birthing the most beautiful thing in their life. And I think that's what we're moving into now collectively. I mean, what's happening with us, the systems aren't working, the paradigms are crumbling, and we're trying to swing the pendulum back. But it's beautiful that when we listen and when we stop following the lies, what's actually possible. And in fact, I don't know if this has been your experience, but I'm bringing it up because a lot of my clients are reporting it, is when they begin to follow their heart, regardless, let's say, of what their family told them to do and a society told them to do, the universe starts to say, hey, Bob, hey, Gary, hey, Amy, and starts giving them the synchronicities, like, attaboy, like, keep following that. Right?
And you know what that does? When you get one of those, you get more awake, don't you? You're looking for them now. And they can become more subtle. And that is when life becomes a conscious living, and it's so much more fun when you connect to that, but it can be more challenging because you're going against the tide. You're swimming upstream, and at times you're exhausted. It's exhausting sometimes, and you just want to give up. But if you do, you're going to float back down, and you're going to have to start all over again, So you just want to keep on moving.
Yeah.
So that feeling and vision, that the heart is really driving it to spawn a new life. Because the way I see it, many people are suffering. And a lot of people, Michael, out of compassion, they're actually suffering together as a virtue, And so it's like virtuous to suffer together rather than say, why don't we rise up together? I'm not going to suffer on you can have your suffering. I have my own. I get it. But why don't we rise up together and compete towards that same goal of creating a heaven on earth or something like that?
Yeah, and I think we're moving, although we're going through the birth canal right now. I think we're beginning to, we're separated more than ever right now, but the ones that want to rise are rising. And something's telling me to share this with you guys is when it comes back to food and as a basic step in nurturing yourself, as Dan's saying, one of the things that may look like swimming upstream that you may have to do is bring your own lunchbox to gatherings where you don't want to eat the toxic food. And I say this just because I've seen Dan come equipped with all his goods and his meats and his food. I've traveled for years with a lunchbox on ice with only the food that would serve me. And I've had clients say, hey, Mike, I know I need to do this, but I'm afraid to like show up at the like family gathering and not eat what everyone else is eating. When I'm marrying a Peruvian woman, Peru is one of the best cultures for food. And I couldn't eat the food that they were serving when I was that sick. I had gluten intolerance. I had, systemic inflammation, and I would bring my food in it. It was troubling because in their culture, they feel like, hey, I want to feed you like the Italians, like that's like the love, but yet
it is. It's a version of saying, I want you to live.
Yes.
That's what feeding someone is. I love you enough. I want you to live. This is how I think it'll support you. And now if they need to be loved, hear this, if they need to be loved, if you say no, they feel that as rejection.
Yes.
That's different. If you are love, then you are absolutely welcoming in that person's process and what they need to do for themselves.
Yes, beautifully said. And it comes with a challenge sometimes, not sometimes. It comes with a challenge when you're ready to live aligned with your truth. And bringing the goddamn lunchbox is part of the process if you want to begin to shift and heal and take that first step of Dan's pillar of 7 elements of optimal health. Speaking of, can we go through the 7 elements real quick and just
let's try it. Let's try and see if we can move through it. So I've combined various different people's frameworks, right, to formulate my own. And that's like saying, I'm getting all the ingredients to make a loaf of bread. So I didn't make the ingredients. I just put them together in a certain way to make my version of a loaf of bread. So the 7 elements of healing initially came from Leonard Orr. And it was someone that was really deep and wide into the 7 elements of healing and beyond that, right? So let's just talk about it. So the 7 elements of healing says that we are earth, water, air, and fire. Those are what Harold Percival writes in Thinking and Destiny as the units of nature that are in common with all of us. Earth, water, air, and fire. Those are the 4 elements that we are all units of nature based on those, right? And then the other 3, the 2 is mind, love, and rest is not necessarily an element, but it's a necessary part for our human experience. So those are the elements, earth, water, air, fire. They relate to the body. Earth, water, air, fire, they relate to the body. Mind, love are in the body and beyond the body, or all around the body. And rest is what makes it all work. So the earth element, I combined with Thinking and Destiny. The earth element refers to your digestive system. Okay, and the digestive system is directly related to the earth element and the soil of the earth. So it's an open organ from mouth to anus. That's an open organ. It's not an internal organ. It's the soil of life. It's where things get planted. The seed of the soul gets planted, and that's where the fertilizer needs to go. So that is absolutely paramount. Your relationship with the microbial world, including, not limited to, parasites, bacteria, yeast, fungus, virus, and unknowns. You need a symbiotic, harmonious relationship with the microbial world. They're not here to harm. They're here to help and help us evolve.
Absolutely.
That's a tough one for people to get over. And the earth element has other things involved with that. Of course, it's the structure of the body. So your bone structure, so it can go a little bit deeper and wider. So then the water element is really easy. That's all the circulatory systems and fluids of the body. And people just think the blood is the circulatory system, and they miss the biggest one, which is the lymphatic system. And very few people are talking about the lymphatic system. It's the biggest circulatory system in the body. Very important. It's your sewerage. It's where your sewer is, right? That's got to be looked at and honored and taken care of through sweat, through movement, passive sweat, active sweat, and probably various other techniques. But the microbiome helps it, because it's all connected. So then you go to the respiratory system, or the air element, the respiratory system, which is breathing, right? And we've done some breath work sessions. It's breathing, but ultimately it's cellular respiration. The exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide within the cell and into the mitochondria to produce energy from oxygen. So then, and there's probably a few more, this, beautiful, like I said, beautiful aromas, essential oils. And there's a lot to be said about breath work as a main player in our well-being. Then you got the fire element, or the sun, or light. And light is the essence of all of life. So light is very vital, and it refers to the generative system, and the generative system has the nervous system and hormonal system married. That's why circadian health is so vital, because it disrupts your nervous system and hormonal system directly. That's why digital stuff, addiction to digital technology, is so harsh on the nervous system and generative system.
Yeah, in fact, I just attended Dave Asprey's Bulletproof conference, and Dr. Perlmutter, who's a world-renowned neurologist, was on there talking about a paper or a study, research study done on what they're calling the Disconnection Syndrome, right? Where we get disconnected, the nervous system, from our prefrontal cortex. And here's the things that cause that: non-restorative sleep, sedentary life, so no movement, inflammation, and too much use of social media.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It changes the whole social cognitive engine that we're wired for. Totally shuts it down. And so generations now are not able to communicate live.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I could get out of my town without GPS anymore, which is pretty sad. So I know my whole mapping part of my brain has disappeared from Google GPS.
Well, our soul map is missing too. So, yeah, right. Hey, Alexa, soul map to. So then, so that makes the foundation to health. The foundation to life, or health is the foundation of life, is the relationship we have with those four elements. Much wider and deeper to go. And I'm not an expert in any of these to per se, because people have specified in those areas of life, right? I'm more the broad philosopher that sees the broad brushstroke of life, because I see the rainbow, not just the red color.
Yeah.
And so I need to see the whole thing and play with that whole spectrum, so that if I'm invested in an identity just on digestion, I'm missing potentially a lot of things that could be feeding into that problem. Right? So I have to take it back. I want to pull the telescope back and not narrow myself down. Hard for me to do that because everyone wants you to be specified.
Yeah.
What do you specifically do? Our culture has said, you're the knee doctor, you're the shoulder doctor. You're the mind doctor, you're the sex doctor.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of right now, I'm not really focused on any one thing, because I'm focused on being the general contractor to get to that soul and let them start the process of rebuilding their body and give them the concepts. And then the concepts we can start to discuss on ways to navigate it. Then you get the mind, right? So the mind, I've just summarized it in three minds. There's the creative mind, there's the emotional mind, and there's the intellectual mind. Okay, and all of them are very vital to have a high degree or a high IQ in the creative realm, in the intellectual realm, and in the emotional realm. And then you move on to love, which has the universal love. And I say that's the absolute love. And absolute love is only the relationship you have with yourself. And then everything else is ordinary love. give and take, push and pull, give and receive, happiness and unhappiness, the struggle of being human and common human ground, our challenges with our ego, but universal love is that one love, the union between our masculine and feminine energy that is married in what I call is the real holy matrimony, is the union of those two aspects of ourselves, those energies in ourselves. That's holy matrimony. But man came up with a different way of viewing that so they could create what we have right now, right? And look at the efficiency of that. Everybody follow man's laws. You're destined to suffer.
Yeah.
And you transgress against nature and nature wins. So you the bottle, you have yourself at the end of the bottle always wins. Because it was created from man for profit, to exploit your weakness as a human being or your vulnerabilities. So
we're getting our power back. We're
superheroes. We're in a video game, and we have to consume so many more things to keep our superpower up. We're in a live video game.
Yeah, especially right now, right? Some of the most interesting times I think we've ever seen.
Yeah, sure. And more to come, I guess. But now let's finish it with rest, because rest is a vital thing that people don't understand. And I'm just going to take it to my own opinion that there's three kinds of rest. There's the rest of conscious rest, which the great yogis that meditate really well and they get into a state of oneness and consciousness at the same time, they can take 20 minutes of rest and be fully charged, like really plugged in, right? That takes 10, 20, 30,000 hours of meditation to maybe get to that state.
Wait, the Oura ring is not going to do it for me?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Hey, anything's possible, Mike. I believe that in the field, but there is no guarantee. Okay. So then you got active rest, which is what the great Tai Chi masters and Qigong masters and other people say is let your life be a walking meditation. Use the least amount of energy for the maximum effect. That's called efficiency. And that's one of nature's major laws. So use the least amount of effort for the maximum effect, because nature does not waste energy. She's super efficient.
Yeah, even a lion doesn't go wasting his energy all day. He attacks precisely in the moments with the greatest opportunity and seizes that.
No, total efficiency is active rest. So therefore, you're not exhausting yourself so much at the end of the day. So you're restful while you're working, for the most part, depending on the effort that's required for the maximum effect. But then that takes into self-care for the sleep cycle of rest, which is the densest form of rest because you need the most. So in our humanness, we need a good solid 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And if you're sick or challenged with addiction or any illness, you're going to need a little bit more. Because that's where you heal, is when you're resting consciously, actively, and with sleep. You need all three. That's why meditation's so vital. That's why you started with meditation. Really, really powerful place to start to get yourself to rest.
Yeah.
And then you combine that with the other elements of breath work and various other elements, then you can start to combine these to have a big bang session. And so rest and sleep, I can't say it enough. We need sleep or your brain will suffer. It will suffer. You won't be able to get to, like you said, you'll be stuck in the amygdala. More so, you'll be hyper-reactive, hyper-vigilant, hyper-aroused. And then it can lead to, I need energy from outside of me because happiness is outside of me and the people, places, and things of the world. So I get my cup of coffee, I'm fixed. It's exactly what man's law says. There's something wrong with you, I'm going to fix you. Yeah, that's exactly the programming you and I have had to chip away at, right? And say, wait, God said I'm in process. There's no fixing. It's process and progress. It's, so those are the elements in a nutshell. We took, and I always say that in our human experience, we're only concerned about our health, our wealth, and our love and relationship.
Health,
Body,
wealth,
mind,
love, and relationship.
yeah, body, mind, and spirit, right? So we're concerned about our body, self-image, whatever. Wealth, we're concerned about our self-worth, and our identity. And really, wealth is not what you have, it's creativity. Are you being creative? That creative mind? And how are you using your creative mind in the world? So the person that's the wealthiest, the person that has an idea to improve the quality of someone's life or the world and can get that manifested the quickest. That's wealth.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And then love and relationship is a mirror. I had this in my meditation this morning. The more still and silent my mind, the more I can see myself in you.
Mm. Yeah.
That's the way it goes. The more I'm in static, I'm going to see the static in you.
Mm.
And so man sees the world as he is, not as it is.
Yes, it is. Yeah. That's funny. That quote you just said has been coming to me on and off for the last few days. In fact, I had to remind my mother about it because she was perceiving that people were thinking negatively of her. And I said, Mom, you don't see things as they are. You see things as you are. So it's a great, great reminder. Yeah.
Right. And so that's the value of the elements of healing, getting the body temple nourished so that it can house God. If your body is not healthy, it only entices the devil to come in, the negativity. And then it creates, if you're not nourished, it creates a certain type of movement in the world. And what do I mean by movement? A certain type of thoughts, a certain type of feelings, and they actually lead us to behaviors that are malnourishing.
Mm.
So you're in a cycle of self-abuse, self-deprivation, self-denial, all that stuff. So you have to break that cycle to build now and say, I got to build a self of who I want to become, not who I am.
Mm.
And it's the same thing in relationship. If you're in intimate relationships, never fall in love with the person as they are. It gives no room for them to change.
Yeah, they're always changing.
It gives no room.
Yeah.
Because then everyone fights for you to be the same.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got to love the person who they want to become. Do you have some sense, some feeling, some thoughts about who do you want to be in this world? And then you can really get behind that and fall in love with that, because then it's process.
Yeah.
And then you can be more engaged with, wow, what's blossoming today? What's going on? Wow, this person's really going for it and getting into this self that's always in process and changing. So that's the love in relationships, is intimate or family or anything. There has to be room for growth. And our ego gets stuck on, I just want it to be the way it used to be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If only.
Yeah. I've been living through that for the last 7 years, healing the relationship with my future mother-in-law. So I know the struggle firsthand. And yes, we're always shifting. We're always changing, and we're really on this journey. And like Dan said, it's a process. It's a process. And I think the most powerful thing that I've taken away from this conversation today is, are we willing to stop living the lie and stop doing the things that keep the lie alive? And are we willing to put those down, whether they're addictions, behaviors, or even the illness, so we can step into our more authentic self and more alignment with our truth and who we want to become in the world? And it brings me back to Nelson Mandela. He talks about, what we're afraid of is our light, not our darkness. We're afraid of our light and stepping into like who we could really be. And that's so vulnerable for so many of us. And yet it's beautiful stories like Dan's and mine and many others of having the obstacle be the way. And
yeah, Ryan Holiday.
Yeah, that book. Yes. And it's really beautiful to see you, man, turn towards that obstacle of cancer and transmute that to be this more loving expression of who you are today in the world. And that's beautiful.
Well, we have a lot of work to do. So as my friend and mentor of the past, Paul Chek, said, take your time dying because we got a ton of work to do. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Even though you got to die in order to live, but
Yeah.
die to a belief, die to a feeling, die to a lie, die to a false identity that collapses.
Yeah.
Those are tough, you know, because here's another lesson I learned is after the word I am, you become or you remain.
Okay, great. So you can go to the room and say, I am an alcoholic and drug addict for 20 years and wonder why your life isn't changing.
Or it's real stagnant.
Yeah.
It's changing. Nothing stands still. So it's changing.
Okay, stagnant.
So if it's not getting better, it's getting worse.
Do you want to speak about that? Whatever follows the I am. I talk about this frequently, and I think people like this kid's lost his mind.
Well, that's great. You're going the right way. So, you know, like what another person says, if you call this normal life, then crazy is what I'm after. So if someone calls me crazy, then I know that I'm get complimented. So I said I am a cancer patient. I didn't like that role. I didn't like the sound of that. I am a cancer patient. It meant that I'm choosing that role. And if I stay there, I'm going to remain that. So then it shifted and it's like, oh, I'm a cancer survivor. There's so many ways it trips me up. So now you can add something into that to really shift it. I'm a loving, dynamic cancer survivor. See the difference?
Yeah.
Big, big difference. The I is related to the love. The I is not related to the noun, the role, right? I am a child of God. Ooh, that's a good one, right? I am all potential. See, whatever you put after the word I am, you become or remain. That's why I never went to Alcoholics Anonymous, because I went one meeting and I went in there and everyone's saying I'm an alcoholic. And I already started this thing of I am a cancer patient, that I don't like the role. And I said, I can't stay in this place. I love the fact that there's a support group that has been helped millions of people really save themselves and not hurt others. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Don't belittle it. Let's move beyond it. Yeah, what's beyond it?
Healing. Yeah. The healing beyond recovery. That's, you know, exactly. Yeah. There's the identification with that keeps us stuck. So it doesn't mean that you may be able to slug booze and do drugs. I mean, let's just look at the fact of it, but it's not who you are.
You're not anything. Yeah. It's just the role you're playing.
Yes.
It's just the role. You're not the role, and alcohol does not get into your body unless you, the user, put it in there. So that it's not the alcohol at all. It's why you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's a fact. It doesn't jump into your body. So in light of that, I think we can all take away that self-love is the most important necessity in any healing journey. Is understanding self-love is so important and necessary. And I like to give the analogy that I came up with in a Toastmasters talk a long time ago. So it was basically this. My dad worked for United Airlines, and we used to fly a lot when we were younger. Now, he wasn't a pilot, but he worked in the airport that we got some tickets and we could fly. And we always got the stewardess, a flight attendant nowadays, we got their version of the mask, the oxygen mask coming down. And they suggest adults, put your mask on first and then help children. So I related that story into my own personal way. Was self-love is putting your mask on first, because you'll be an asset to the evolution of society. If you don't put your mask on first, you will become a liability to the evolution of society. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. Self-love needs to be addressed as an individual so you could actually radiate and be love in the world. So you don't have to be the neediness to need love and need compliments and need that. You can receive it with grace, but your power is radiating the love. Fill yourself up, learn about it, find out ways, hire Michael, get in touch with me, get in touch with someone that you feel more compelled to. It doesn't matter. We're all in this together.
We are, man. We're all in this together. And that's a beautiful way to wind it down here is, self-love. Put your oxygen mask on first so you can be of the highest support for everyone. And in fact, self-care isn't selfish. It's a necessity if you want to grow and really be of service to other people. So
Think of it. Self-care is caring.
yes, self-care.
It's caring. It's practicing caring. And then when you see your challenges, you become more compassionate in the sense that, wow, I can do it. I'm going to be more compassionate about people's challenges and that I know that they can do it and I can act as a self-love. I can be the beacon of inspiration for other people to be inspired and ignite their inspiration to live, to get that seed to just germinate just a little bit every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. And thank you for being an element for my husk to break and my seed to bloom, Dan. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm benefiting from your fruit right now. So thank you so much. I hope your listeners can sift through this and grab some golden nuggets that they can apply immediately.
Yeah. And for the listeners, where can they find you and learn more about you and your services supporting others to heal?
Great. So I have a website, danhegerich.com, Dan Hegerich, Hegerich.com. And I do have a podcast that I've started. It's called Do the Cure, acronym CURE, capital letters. It's on 6 of the major podcast sites, iTunes, Spotify, Podomatic. There's a couple others. I'm not big into technology, so I just do the work and I let somebody else I let the universe try to do it right now. And as I get better, I will be bringing in the elements of healing with, once I get familiar with it and my voice is good and everything, I'll be bringing in guest speakers on each element that we could tear apart. And, you could talk about primal movement, primal athletes. You could talk about the microbiome. We could talk about lectins. You could bring in real more specific experts in those areas, which would be fun, but it would be right under those elements.
Beautiful.
So it'll be really wonderful to hear how they can contribute to the earth element and what does it mean to them and how it is in my framework. And it keeps me on an even keel. It gives me something to look back to. So danhegerich.com, certainly shoot an email out if you have any concerns or questions, or if you just need someone to listen for a second, 15, 20 minutes so that we can connect, which is the most important. And then Do the Cure, if you listen to it, you might find some gems in there as well to keep the magic rolling, because miracles don't just happen, Michael. They are created.
Beautiful, Dan. Thank you. Thank you so much.